Hello, Leatu, and welcome back to the morning show. It's me, Ryan, and I'm here with a lovely Bear and a lovely Hannah. How are we today?
Man, I'm super, super excited to be here. Of course, Monday mornings, I love it. Love being here. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more what we've got on the show today.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you everyone for tuning into our show again. Awesome to be back and super hyped.
Cool. So I'm going to get right into it. For my talk of the day, I will be talking about tax relief.
Damn.
Now, a News Hub poll recently, they asked, do you support tax relief for the first $14,000 that a person makes? And 84% of people voted yes. Now, what this means is that on the first $14,000 that you make, that is essentially untaxed. Now, I bring this up because the cost of living has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Petrol prices have increased. Grocery prices have gotten really high. And it's time to start thinking, especially for our lower socioeconomic people, we need to start relieving them of the tax burden. Like to just to help with the growing costs.
Yeah.
And this is a system that they use in Australia. So on the first $18,000 that people make, then that is untaxed.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is not to be confused with the tax cuts that are being proposed by the opposition parties, where they want to cut the tax threshold of the top tax rate, which would disproportionately benefit those on a higher income. And yeah, I'm just really curious about what our viewers think and what everyone else thinks about. Should we incorporate this tax relief, like just to help out a bit? Like it will be expensive. The leader of the Opportunities Party has said that it'll be about $6.3 billion on lost tax revenue, and that's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money to take away from tax that could go to help things. But at the same time, we are suffering.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In a way. And one of Raf Manji's solutions is to tax land.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we should do that?
Yeah, that's a really good point to make. And I did do some research a while back, like a few years back, and most people that are making, was that $18,000? Was the $18,000 a year are either disabled, they have a disability, not disabled, they have a disability, or there are people looking after people with disabilities, or they're on a benefit because, they just can't work, mental health issues. So I just feel like it's wrong to tax the part of society who are really going through it, who may not have the same privileges as people who are able to work 40 hours a week. So it's something to really consider, and taxing land sounds like a pretty good idea. But just from what I'm hearing right now, it sounds like a good idea.
Again, it's definitely a topic that we'll probably like to elaborate more on and get someone to, fine tune a few details. But I agree with Hannah. I think it's unfair to tax certain areas, but I also know that there's benefits as well in with that as well. But land, interesting. I wonder if that's going to affect homeowners as well. So interesting.
Exactly. It's like everything tips the scale, right?
Yeah.
So
interesting topic
for sure. And my talk of the day: technology. So if you're anyone who uses the internet, you know what technology is. However, tech is a booming industry which generates over 5,000 jobs every year. 5,000 jobs every year. That's a lot, guys. So in New Zealand, Graham Muller, who was the CEO of New Zealand Tech, says that Māori, Pasifika, and women are severely underrepresented, in tech jobs. And what am I talking about when I say tech jobs? When I say tech jobs, I'm talking about data science, cybersecurity, software development, or anywhere you can innovate to make processes easier using technology. And there's not many Pasifika people in the workforce. Apparently, there's only 2.8% Pasifika people who work in the tech industry. which is very, very concerning because, this is the future we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we need to be there as we make decisions, as we innovate, and how our communities best engage with that. Research has suggested that a career in technology could help to close the wage and poverty gap, which is prevailing within our Pasifika communities. And we've seen it, there's the fair pay gap. They're trying to find these solutions. Why are Pasifika people not getting paid as much as white men? Why are women not getting paid as much as men in the industry? And this is an actual, real solution to that, is educating and supporting Pasifika people to get into tech. It'll bring in a huge income. Also, there's a lack of awareness about careers in the tech industry. A lot of Pasifika people think, oh, it's not for me. It's too hard. Tech, I don't even know what that is. But honestly, if you do some reading, some research into it, you approach the right people, it might actually be for you because it's all about being creative. Pasifika people are great creative and making things easier. Me personally, I'm like a lazy person. If I find an easier way, I'm going to find the easier way. And I don't call it laziness. I call it innovative because you're making it easier for everyone else. So if you're that type of person, tech can definitely be for you. So awesome news. Spark, yes, one of the biggest companies in New Zealand, are running a $1 million scholarship program specifically for Māori Pasifika women to get them launched into their careers. How awesome would it be to have on your CV, I worked for Spark, I was the tech development person.
It's massive. It is massive.
It'll really launch your career, and you'll get to meet exciting new people. But they are launching that program. It's a $1 million scholarship program, which can be for you if you are Māori, Pasifika, or woman. We will link the details to the application to that scholarship program to this show. But guys, get your applications in. Try something new or try something you've always wanted to do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And don't quote me on this, but I think I recall the owner of Microsoft saying that he always used to assess how lazy people would, do things, because they always found an easier process to get the job done. And that's all he wanted. And he would just look at them, how, and I think that's a good idea, because and I'm not saying that lazy people don't get the jobs done. They just find an easier way to process. And I'm not saying to take shortcuts and all that, but I love that. And for my talk of the day, it's all about opportunities as well. But it's Prime Minister's Pasifika Pacific Youth Awards. The awards celebrate success and rewards outstanding achievements by our Pasifika young people in Aotearoa. And I think this is really important that we highlight the success every single day, because it's important. It's important to highlight our Pasifika, because you know what? They are the next generation. And the awards recognize the achievement of young Pasifika in Aotearoa in several fields. And this is including the field that Hana was talking about. And they could also help with the field that, in the government that Ryan was talking about. But it's including being an advocate for their language and culture, leadership and entrepreneurship, and their efforts in arts, and also education and community. And this is everything that we're already doing in our community. I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of our Pasifika children are raised to be some amazing leaders, but we just don't highlight it. And that's just a part of our culture as well, where we don't really highlight it. And I think it's really important. And I love that this initiative's been put forward. It is for 8. They do have 8 awards across these categories. And it's supported by sponsors and also the Ministry of Pasifika People. The application unfortunately has closed, but I wanted to bring this up as my talk of the day, because I thought it was important that this is like a nomination. So in the new year, I really, really think that our people need to evaluate certain situations in your space, in schools, in churches, in community groups, because, if we don't know about these awards, we don't know who to nominate. And I think there are still so many people who don't acknowledge or who don't know about this nomination, who miss out. So guys, if you do know someone who is worthy to be highlighted, or who have just done something amazing in the community, nominate them in the new year. The applications do open around this time, which is November. So all the best to those who have been nominated, but that's my talk of the day.
No, that's really awesome. And I absolutely agree with you. You know, we've talked about on the show before how Pacific communities can have a tall poppy syndrome, and we like to put each other down, you know, just real talk here. But these awards really are special, and I feel like they provide an awesome platform for our Pasifika communities to be acknowledged truthfully for their hard work. So there you have it, guys. Should we tax land? Should we stop taxing the lowest income earners in New Zealand? Make sure to look into that $1 million scholarship program that Spark is providing, and also celebrating the success of our Pacific youth here in New Zealand. I have our quote for us.
Oh,
here it is, guys. Drum roll.
Yes.
Our quote for today is, an apology is something we do, not something we say.
Shucks. It's pretty powerful this morning. I know that an apology does mean so much when you say it, but shucks, it's pretty powerful. Your quote there, an apology is something we do, not something we say. Because a lot of the time I've been programmed or taught that an apology is something we say. But it's interesting that you said that. But there are benefits of an apology. For me, I just know it's truly something that heals relationships. I find myself apologizing a lot, but a lot of the times those apologies are quite empty. So for me, it's important. An apology is important, and it helps acknowledge what you've done wrong, either yourself or the other person. It highlights their responsibility in whatever it is that's happened, or the incident that's happened. But it also, for me, it helps eliminate people and and those behaviors, because if you don't apologize or highlight these whatever it is that's happened, they continue to commit these or harmful behaviors. But it's also, for me, it helps to avoid future misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
For me, but I love that quote. Yeah, thanks for that.
No, that I definitely agree with you. You know, if you don't apologize, it kind of lingers.
Yeah.
You don't want that to happen, is when it lingers and you can't be at peace with it. But I did do some reading into a psychologist who did an entire PhD thesis on apologies. And while reading that study, he did mention the two main reasons as to why people don't apologize, which I found very interesting. The first reason was, people don't apologize because they don't care enough about the other person or the relationship to take on the emotional discomfort of owning our mistake and apologizing for it. The second reason they don't apologize is because they believe that their apologies don't actually matter. So for these kind of people, admitting wrongdoing and offering an apology it's too psychologically threatening for their well-being. Offering an apology implies that they've harmed another person in some way, and they literally can't live with the fact that they've hurt someone. And so instead of dealing and feeling the full effect of, oh crap, I actually hurt someone, they would rather avoid it and just continue on with life because it's safe. But in saying this, I don't want to shame people who deal with this problem, because it's a very hard place to come out with. And I've been in this place before, where I did find it hard to apologize. But if you do find yourself in that space where you're having a hard time apologizing because of feelings of guilt or shame, that's totally normal. But also get some help. There is a lot of places you can get help from. But yeah, it's it really goes to show that apologizing is such a it's more deep than what people think it is. You know?
And like the fact that you talk about it being significant on a psychological level, it just goes to show how powerful a person you are if you can apologize, and how powerful of an act it is to apologize.
Right, because people are usually like, oh, they said sorry, they're weak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I won, they said sorry too. You know what I mean?
But it's actually quite powerful.
But you have to be the bigger person. And we have to be the stronger person. And I really love this quote because it boils down to actions speak louder than words.
Amen.
I know.
As strong as an apology is, if it's just words,
Yeah.
sometimes it can be empty.
Yeah.
And sometimes it lacks that power that you need.
Yep.
Because the person on the receiving end will just be like, okay, thanks. And
Yeah.
goes one ear, goes out the other. It's powerful, but if it isn't followed up by like a change of behavior or an acknowledgement of something that you've done and then some kind of reparation, then the apology like really means nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's sad. And like that brings us to our topic of today, because it's really rare to see people in power or governments, world leaders acknowledge the wrongdoings that their institutions have committed in the past.
Right.
And it's even rarer to see a world leader participate in a Pasifika way of apologizing.
Absolutely.
For the wrongdoings of an institution that she wasn't even a part of at the time. It's even rarer for the head of a country to perform a traditional Pasifika way to apologize. And like it just goes to show the power that apologies do have on our people.
Absolutely. And what Ryan's talking about there is how the New Zealand government apologized about the dawn raids.
Yes.
And, with the, I really like the points that you mentioned there, because you took it from a personal level, Ryan, to an entire government level of an apology, which is something to really try and it's hard to dissect or even understand. And, with the research I had mentioned earlier, the apology shows that a person values the relationship. So it's really touching that a government apologized to a Pacific community, because it shows that the New Zealand government valued their relationship with Pacific communities. And right after this break, we're going to get straight into why that apology was valid and how entrenched Pacific relationships are with New Zealand.
Bluwave Ngalu Moana. We are focused on providing digital solutions for our Pacific people. With a creative team that incorporates Pasifika values and cultures, there are no limitations. We offer a variety of digital media solutions that cater to Pacific peoples. With over 10 years' experience in graphic design and photography, we take pride in creating art with a Pacific focus. We also specialize in filming, editing, and live streaming. A digital media company serving our Pasifika families, Pasifika businesses, and Pasifika communities. Bluwave Ngalu Moana. Live and breathe Pacific.
After the Second World War, countries and governments all around the world, they felt a boom. They felt an economic boom, which expanded industry. It gave agriculture more space to expand. And with all this ramping up of our economies, labor was needed. There was a labor shortage. And where's the cheapest, best place to find labor? At the time, for the New Zealand government, it was the Pacific. Pacific people provided cheap labor. And so immigration schemes were established, and immigration raked up so that the people that were on the island could come over to New Zealand to meet the labor expectations. The Samoan Prime Minister at the time, Tuiatua Tupua Tamasese, he cited that the reason why a lot of islanders decided to migrate was due to job opportunities, money, and education. And in another article that I read, they stated that New Zealand was painted as a Mecca, the land of milk and honey, where streets were lined with gold, where education and technology and telecommunications were all unheard of in Samoa. So New Zealand government started targeting the communities in Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga, of which those people were enticed to New Zealand with the dream. But the economic boom wasn't to last.
Yeah.
So around mid-70s, the UK was New Zealand's biggest economic trade partner. We had a lot of exports going out to the UK. But the UK decided to join what was called the European Economic Community, the EEC. And the terms of that agreement was that the UK needed to utilize agricultural industries inside Europe, which effectively barred New Zealand's trade. So that significantly affected the deal. New Zealand lost one of its biggest export partners, which was a huge hit to the economy.
Yeah.
In the same year, the Middle Eastern oil producers slashed production, and that means there was less oil to go around. So the demand was high, and the supply was not meeting the demand, which meant oil prices were skyrocketing. And what that essentially meant was, for an industrial society like New Zealand, they relied on the oil prices being low.
Yeah.
Right.
Once the oil prices increased, then the cost was felt by the industries in New Zealand. Wages became a lot more costly to meet. Things like freight, the goods were a lot more costly to make. So on that, it became a lot harder to operate as per normal. And like these two things are kind of the main reasons why New Zealand's economy took a huge hit at the time. On that, Pacific migration was still happening. So Pacific people were still coming over to look for jobs and look for better opportunities.
Yep.
And because there were mass job losses and the economy was crashing to a halt, a lot of people from here decided to look at the Pacific people coming over, and then they decided to point fingers.
Yeah.
They decided to blame them.
Absolutely. And that was awesome how you shared that. I'm going to try not to get emotional as I say this, but just to put it into context, how you were saying Te Pōtamusi said they saw the opportunity here in New Zealand. And my grandmother, she's passed away, Nana Susi, she told me about her story coming to New Zealand. And they literally had a hat, and they lived in Salonga in Savai'i. And they would pull out names from the hat. They're like, "Hey, you get to go to New Zealand and work there." And you know what they had to do? They had to pack their stuff as quickly as possible. And the plane that they were on were like those warships where you're like sitting across from each other. And if your name gets pulled from that lotto, you got to pack. You got to go because they're like, "Yay, we got the opportunity to go." And then they come to New Zealand. So like in contrast, or not in contrast, and to what you're saying, you could start seeing how it was, for people back then realistically, waiting for this chance, waiting for this gold mine. And then Nana Susi was able to come to New Zealand and buy 2 homes and start families. And while that happened, that this mass immigration of Samoans coming, it was so foreign to them. They were like, okay, where's our community? Where's our whalesao?
Yeah.
And they were looking for it everywhere. So the Pacific community grew as that labor demand was needed. Yeah. They started in Ponsonby. The PIC church there was formed. And the community started getting together. The Ponsonby and Grey Lynn it started getting filled with markets. They started studying galo there now and they're like, yeah, we're building a community together. So here our people are, our Pasifika people are traveling away from their homes into a foreign country where they see as opportunity, building their community, really putting their legs down and creating a foundation. And then New Zealand has an economic collapse.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing this, like, holy crap, yay, we get all this opportunity, but now we're being the point of blame from white New Zealand and from government. Why are we to blame when we came here to assist with the labor? We don't want to be the scapegoat. So during that increase in population, it created a more stable Pacific community. And then by the mid-1960s, 64% of the population of suburbs, such as Arch, were situated in Grey Lynn and Ponsonby and Herne Bay, which has significant Pasifika populations. So, moving forward from that, the economy crashed. Pacific Islanders were being blamed. They were very racist, really racist things. We're going to bring up a graphic here to show what the kind of comedy they were using against Pacific Islanders at that time, which would not be accepted. You get jawed if like a person spoke to you like that. You're asking for a one-on-one fight on the road. So, when that economy collapsed, there was a 1968 amendment to the act that allowed for the deportation of those who had overstayed their work permits. Section 33A of that amendment gave police the power to ask people to produce not only a valid passport, but also a permit to enter and remain temporarily in New Zealand, as well as other evidence of identity. So basically, cops could pull you up and say, where's your passport? You don't have your passport? Okay, let's take you to the cells because you don't have a passport. And it was very racist. And I'm saying this lightly because the words that they would use were like the N-word, black people, black swear word. It was really, really bad at the time. And this was introduced by the Labour government. And because they were trying to appease to the wider part of New Zealand, who were also blaming Pacific Islanders. And then the Labour government used that act to focus solely on Samoans and Tongans. But basically, based on the experience that we've all collectively researched, it was if you were brown, you were a product of that racial profiling. And then further on, National Party comes into government. Robert Muldoon, he intensified the raids. This guy literally put a target. He said, we need 5,000 people deported by this date. And it really made everything worse. And that's when the dawn raids happened. And these police officers would come into your homes. They would come in with their guns. Your kids are sleeping, flashing lights in your faces. If you're naked, they'll take off your blanket and they'll say, get dressed. And if you're not getting dressed or moving as fast as they want you to, they'll start swearing at you. They'll start, doing some really terrible things, which a lot of our Pacific ancestors had to go through, which was just, it's really sad. And I feel like there hasn't been enough coverage of how serious and severe the dawn raids were.
Honestly, I mean, even just listening to that, Hannah, we've mentioned it time and time again, the experience, like we didn't get to live in that era, but thank goodness we didn't, because I don't think we were built for it, right? And I think for me, I mean, let me make this real. For you during the raids, our Pacific Islanders had to be careful, like extremely careful, and it was so dangerous. Like they had to hide. I mean, hide from the police, which are people who are there to keep us safe. They had to, they're supposed to protect us, protect our community. They had dogs hunting, sniffing out people, our people. It was, I think for me, I was just kind of like, we've seen the documentary, we've seen the series, and I don't think it really did paint the picture. Whereas we did also, I think myself and Ryan also, we experienced a theatre, and it wasn't until I watched that theatre that showed so much emotion, and I actually, the tears were rolled down my face, because I think I was just so ignorant. I just didn't even it didn't, because I didn't experience it. It didn't affect me, but I mean, it was such a horrible time for our people.
Absolutely.
And it's even said that the dawn raids were so selective, and that the majority of the visitors that were here were also from Australia, Britain, America, and yet it was so selective that it was just Pacific Island. And this is where the attack just continued, and the attack was so real that it extended through out to the schools. Like they even targeted the schools, and the school which is Seddon, the Seddon school, which is now Western Springs College, I believe. There was a teacher there, or a staff. There was one there by the name of Welby Ings, who also shared his recollection of how he had to hide our Pasifika students. Signals were used. I mean, you're talking about signals that you would normally use in times of war, and we didn't even hear. I mean, growing up in schools, you never ever heard anything of this. They would teach you about the World War
Yeah,
II,
like Hitler
and
Yeah.
and but this is them mirroring exactly what this time. I mean, it wasn't as bad, but it was similar to what was happening here in New Zealand. And the teachers' well-beings highlighted the fact that in schools, these children were so afraid, they were confused because their parents didn't know how to explain to their children
Yeah.
exactly what was happening.
Right.
The only form of communication was your dad had to move. And I think the whole reasoning behind it was to ensure that information wasn't leaked out to their peers, because I mean, kids talk.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
my dad is an overseer.
And it's very innocent, right?
Innocent. These are children. And these children formed such a special bond with teachers like Welby that they felt safe. These teachers then became their safe haven that we'll show some images up as well. And there's the floorboards that the children, that the teachers would hide the kids under.
Wow.
Once they got a signal from the main office that the police were on site, they would then quietly hide the children. But I think for me, I don't even know how you would explain it to a Pasifika, student.
And
at the
also,
time.
like, you're putting your job at risk.
Exactly.
So it really shows how brave.
Yeah. It also showed how some of them were still compassionate. And I think the story shared as well was the reason why they felt so connected to these children was, even though they had gone over their stay, the children, their families in the islands invested so much into these children to be here, and all they wanted was a great education, and they wanted to advance their education, their knowledge, so that they, at some stage in their life, that they were able to give back to their ainga in Samoa, Tonga, or wherever in the Pacific. But it wasn't just learning, it was just learning the basics to be able to provide for their families in Samoa. So, I mean, the experience, there's so many stories online about how our families were traumatized. But I wanted to just highlight that there was teachers who saw the fear in these children, and who wanted to protect our Pacific communities as well. So it's such a horrible time.
It's really important to acknowledge the contributions from non-Pacific peoples at the time, who, like well-beings, put their, I wouldn't say livelihoods, but put their career on the line to help us. And I don't think we would have gotten very far had it not been the compassion that they showed for our communities. Because, man, when you hear about some of the stories that come out, it's really, really hard to kind of just listen to it.
And I'm still trying to conceptualize the idea that we had Pacific kids hiding under floorboards. In New Zealand, the green, peaceful Hobbiton country that we all dreamed of. And I feel like if the Panthers and the activists at that time didn't do what the work that, of trying to remind New Zealand, hey, this actually happened, we'd probably just be like, what? The dawn raids? What was that? Do you know what I mean? So it's so important. And I'm so happy that you shared that experience with us from a teacher's, teacher's lens. But I do have another experience I wanted to share. It was from Joshua Liava'a, who was a young Tongan policeman at the time. So can you imagine being a policeman and an islander on the raids? Like, it'll just be like, you're in there like holding a flashlight, like, what am I doing? It's
like you're going against your people.
Exactly. So it must have been really hard for them. So this one's from Joshua Liava'a. And Joshua Liava'a, in his own words, said, you have two policemen walking in, and without saying anything, they pull your blankets away from you. And if you're naked, they say, get up, put something on. And they stand there looking at you while shyly jumping around, trying to have something to cover yourself. And if you take your time, they grab you and throw you into the lounge. The language is the coarsest, most obscene language you can use. Like, this might have to be bleated, but it says like, you get up, you black bitch, put something on. So this was the language the police were using with our Pasifika community, who came here for a good life.
Yeah.
And it's very sad when you're supposed to look at authority as a place of safety.
Yes.
But that just kind of turned around and slapped them in the face. So I understand our mistrust with the police, our mistrust with the government.
Yeah.
And it really does show how people at the time were abusing the power and abusing the establishment to exert their own personal xenophobia against the people. I actually have another story, and this was said by our guest today. So he was talking about a member of the Polynesian Panthers. Her name is Agnes Tuisamoa. And being one of the older members, she was tasked with going to families that had been seized, that had been raided, and that had been arrested. So one morning she had been called up to the police station, to the Central City Police Station, at about 5 a.m. About 4 or 5 o'clock. A mother had been taken in, so they had been dawn raided, and a mother had been taken in. And the really sad thing about it is that she had a 2-month-old baby.
What?
And it's so, she had her baby with her, and obviously you need to feed your baby often. And she had pled to the police officers who had told her to use the milk that they use for their coffee.
A 2-month-old baby.
I would kill someone.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And even sadder than that is that the two of them, with just the clothes on their backs, they were deported that morning at 7.
That is terrible. Like,
so heartbreaking.
Me and you are both mothers. 2 months, you're recovering from your pregnancy. You can't even walk properly. You really need help. The baby needs to be fed. Diaper changes happen every 2-3 hours. So like, if I didn't have my stuff that I needed and a warm place where I'm recovering, I would be so furious.
I mean, just hearing that breaks my heart. Really, like, I've just got goosebumps and I'm shaking and my palms are sweaty because, I mean, how any human could do that to a mother of that's a newborn child.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think for me, if you put yourself in that position and you're like, you get told that you have to feed your child milk, like just standard milk.
Yeah.
Which even today, we have to sterilize everything.
Exactly.
And who the heck do they think they are?
Yeah.
Telling a mother, this is...
And cow milk is not suitable for 2-month-year-olds. Like, it's against every requirement.
And people know this.
Yeah.
It's just standard information. I mean... that's heartbreaking.
It's stories like this that we need to keep reiterating and keep engaging with, because these are the horror stories. And if we forget them, then we forget the pain. Then we forget the effect that the people in power at the time, we forget that their effect on our people today. And I just want to reiterate to anyone who's watching, especially if we need to be clued up on what happened back then. There's so much more. There's so many resources online right now. There are podcasts if you can't read long text. There are documentaries if you'd rather have something visual. There's a whole bunch of mediums for you to engage in the content. So don't come to me and say, I don't know what happened. I don't care what happened, because it's out there and it's for you to read and it's for you to remember the pain that our people went through.
Absolutely.
And I am excited to bring on our guest for today, who is undoubtedly one of the best speakers that I've met. And I'm really excited. We have a Polynesian Panther by the name of Tigilau Ness coming on to talk about his experiences with us. And we'll be talking to him after this break.
Bluwave Moana. We are focused on providing digital solutions for our Pacific people. With a creative team that incorporates Pasifika values and cultures, there are no limitations. We offer a variety of digital media solutions that cater to Pacific peoples. With over 10 years' experience in graphic design and photography, we take pride in creating art with a Pacific focus. We also specialize in filming, editing, and live streaming. A digital media company serving our Pasifika families, Pasifika businesses, and Pasifika communities. Bluwave Moana. Live and breathe Pacific.
Welcome back to the Pacific Morning Show. I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today. He was a member of the Polynesian Panthers during the time of the Dawn Raids, and I'm really excited to get straight into talking about. So we have Tigilau Ness with us today. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in. We've read a lot about your story, and we've absorbed a lot of information from documentaries, the podcasts that have all come out. And sorry, I'm nervous now because it's so exciting to see you up here in person.
Yeah.
Especially with what's happened in the past, and we'll go straight into our questions.
Sure.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, like Ryan said, man, absolutely nervous. Absolute honor to have you here to tell real life, your real life experience. But I've heard Ryan and Hannah share your stories so many times, but what I wanted to know was, for so many of our Pasifika people, we're quite standoffish and we're polite, and we just stand our, we just stay in our corner and we do as what we're told. But what I wanted to know is, what ignited that fire in you to advocate and to fight for others? I mean, you did it so well. We've heard the stories, but what ignited that for you?
I think it's in our DNA. Our history doesn't allow us to lie down and take things like the Dawn Raids and all the racist attacks on our people. Our DNA, our history doesn't allow us to do that. True, a lot of my actions have been based on my mum's teaching. She brought me up on the Niue Bible. So I learned how to read and write in Niue from the Bible, and the teachings. Even though I wanted to go outside and play with my mates out in the streets and stuff, I was forced to sit at the kitchen table, and read the Bible in Niue. So I think those values, relieve the oppressed, plead for the widow, the fatherless, all those values, which are Christian values. And I believe that our peeps, Pacific, we are majority Christian driven. But I also believe that a true Christian will get out there and do, rather than just talk. So I'm judged by, my faith is judged by my works, I believe. And like it says in the word, therefore thy children shall be thy judge. Well, you are my children and you're judging me. What did you do, Matua? So looking at the future, I think it's in our DNA. We don't take those kind of things lying down. And especially this is our turf, our country, the Pacific. Our peeps were navigating and doing amazing things, while the rest of them up north were living in caves and trying to light fires and looking for honey, and we had sugarcane and all the rest, all of that. So our history, when I look at our history, I think that's what woke me up and drove me to do for my peeps that were getting unjustly targeted. You know, the dawn raids is an epitome of that attitude. And I'd say to you, all those people, you know, don't bring that here.
Yeah.
We're not like what you think. We might look passive and friendly and stuff, but don't rub us the wrong way, please.
Yeah.
You know, so as Christian values, you got to stand up to evil, you know, and we know we shall win because we are confident in the victory of good over evil, you know. So it's ongoing, isn't it? The whole world is in turmoil, and I think, you know, they should look at how we're trying to live together in peace rather than go the other way. I mean, I could have gone the other way, and I was starting to, and I ended up in prison because of it, you know. So if that's the price, then our peeps have paid well and truly. I remember in history a man named Pānapa who protested against the French occupation of Tahiti, and he was imprisoned and cast away by the French colonial onto an island. And when he was released, maybe 80 years old, the fire was still in him. And he still protested, and the French were going to cart him away. His name was Pānapa. Look it up. When I read those stories, then I know I'm on the right track. Yeah.
Shucks, definitely a fighter there. But, you know, we've heard, you know, what you've done, you know, amazing work. But I also know that the attitude, there was a shift with the attitude, especially with with our generation, with my generation as well. And I'm guilty for it as well, where there was a lack of information or understanding as to exactly what happened back in the days. But I know during the dawn raids, our people it was a traumatic time for our people, a traumatic event. So many of our Pasifika's families either spoke about it or didn't. Are there some parts of the events that still trigger an uncomfortable memory for you?
Always when I'm doing interviews like this, the memories and the effects of it, and the ongoing, not ignorance, I would say, but the disinformation that we live in a harmonious country and everything's dumpty-doo, when we know for a fact that the system is geared against us in every which way. Because 50 years ago we were protesting about housing, education, health. 50 years later we're still doing the same thing. And how come? So it's a systemic
issue.
Yes, you know, it goes on. And until that changes, and I'm relying on you, the young ones now, to make that change, you know. We believe in the Panthers that education is the key to it. We can fight and protest and, you know, do all those things to highlight and to call attention to what's happening to us, but we have to be in there making the changes as well, you know, creating the rules. After all, this is our area, this is our territory. You know, we should be allowed to say who comes in and who goes. I see recently the stats for the immigration is still the same.
Oh,
South Africa, Canada, but our people, we're regulated like, wow. So that attitude, we have to have our own people up there in immigration, you know, if we're going to go that way. Otherwise, just let the gates open up and bring all our people, because we need, first of all, training in order to work here. It's not just labour intensive. I mean, our history tells us that, you know, we're quite ingenious when it comes to survival and, you know, our culture.
And I really like how you pin that together, because the Dawn Raids apology, there was a lot of separation. You know, people were saying this is a white thing, this is not really genuine. But the fact that you've understood that there still needs to be change that happens, which is allowing Pacific people to come into New Zealand more freely, and understanding that the apology needed to happen to pave the way. You know, they work collaboratively together. And I think a lot of our Pasifika youth should understand that we're just paving pathways for generations to come.
That's right. We're only doing the best that we can for now with what we have. And that's not much, but our determination in our lives. We put our lives on the line for our people.
Mm.
And because we've done that and we're doing that, we're not going to change
Yeah.
until those changes do happen and it's done.
Mm.
So it's an ongoing thing, because racists also need help.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And you got to have a really big heart to understand that. And it's so great to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Mm.
we're taught from the Bible to forgive them that do, you
Yep.
know, wrong to us, and that's a hard thing to do, and that takes practice, and I'm still practicing today.
Yeah.
After all that my and hurt and sorrow that our people go through, so I find that being creative, you know, helps me get over that. So it's like, I'm going to tell on you guys, so here, you better, you know, so I write about it and I perform and I sing and I try and educate like that, you know, and lead by example. Where you see trouble or where you see my help. I mean, those are the values that we're being raised up on, you know.
Yeah.
It's only when we come into contact with the I, me, mine, which isn't us.
Yeah.
We're totally inclusive, you know, which is how we've survived.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. And it's quite hard for youth, you know, to really not have a hateful or spiteful attitudes towards the oppressor.
Oh, yes.
So what would your advice be? Because, you know, you've shared with us that you found an outlet. You do it through music.
Yes.
You do it in a positive way that's not disruptive or not, I wouldn't say disruptive. It is very disruptive in a good sense, but it's not hateful, you know?
Yeah.
So what would your advice be to youth who are finding it hard to, you know, have the empathy to move forwards because of the bitterness from our history with the oppressor?
Well, that's it, exactly what you say. Learn from history. Look at our history. How did we get this far? And it wasn't done with hate. It was done for love for our people, for a start, first and foremost. I mean, why I started really was to help my people. So all you young ones out there, you know, we need your help. We need your strength. I'm coming into my 70s now. I'm starting to lose and waver a bit, you know, and I need your help. I need your strength, because you young ones are the strong ones, and they know that too. So to try and stem that, you know, to kill it off, in fact, because cultural genocide is what they were doing back in the 70s, you know, not teaching us our true histories. In fact, they didn't care about our true history. So it's just as well we latched on to the remnants of our elders, you know, who were still alive at the time. They're gone now, you know. But we carry it on because it's in our DNA. We just can't help it. So don't try and deny it, young ones. Go with it. Use it. Yeah, we need you. That's all there is.
I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, it is on us to carry on the stories, and that's why I'm so glad that we're having this conversation with you, for you to give us these words of wisdom. And I wanted to talk more about how the youth are utilizing the story, and a lot of that has been through the arts.
Yes.
With the Panther series, with the theatre show.
Yes.
Do you think that your story has been told well?
Some parts of it has, and some parts of it are being told, and some parts aren't, as per normal. But truth will always come through, and I think that's how we move forward. Like it says, you know, the truth will set you free. And once we find out why these things happened, you know, they're humans too. So just by saying that, then I know that what's within us can overlook and go past that, you know, and come up with solutions that enable us all to live together in peace and harmony, you know, like how it's meant to be. And because it was like that, you know, before the colonial arrivals, and of course, you know, differences and stuff. But I think modern things like sport, instead of wars, you compete against each other on the field, and in all sorts of ways, you know. And you young ones are good at that. If you look at, you know, say the All Blacks, if you take away the Pacific Islanders out of it, what do you got? Nada. And the same all the way through. When you look at those kind of things, what have you got? So this country is good at, the so-called leaders of this country are good at pushing it out that we're good and harmonious and all that, when underneath they know. You know, before they go to sleep at night, I know they're worried. You know, and they don't want to see that other side of us.
Exactly.
And we don't want to see that either. You know, we want the best.
Yes. Now, I wanted to go a bit more into your history with the Polynesian Panthers. And I wanted to ask, what was the kind of culture like with the other Panthers? Was it very fun?
Okay, we were all 16, 17-year-olds. The oldest would have been perhaps the former chairman, who was 19, just starting at university. So when we go out to schools and we talk to the young ones there, we say, stand up, all the 16-year-olds, and they all stand up, and 17-year-olds stand up. So we were your age when we started doing this kind of stuff. So the culture around that time was you either joined a gang or you stayed home and hid. Because what are young people supposed to do? Stay home and hide? No, they were all out on the streets because there was no organised sport, no community centres, none of that. And the city council, the government even, never had us before. Have no idea of what we're capable of or what we're good at. Eventually they find out, they're good at sport. You know, the school I went to, the high school I went to, was mostly sport. If you're good at sport, you go to the top. You know? Never mind the rest, because they don't believe we got brains. You know? But I took French, I took Latin, you know, until I got expelled for growing an afro. You know, my culture, who I was, they didn't accept that. They wanted a brown skin, white inside. You know. You can't change your fuzzy hair.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I tried that, Brill cream and all that. Whoa. Never worked. Didn't fit inside. I didn't feel right. You know, I wanted to find out who I was. And the Polynesian Panthers gave me, you know, incentive to be proud of who I was. Today, that's one of our programs. Celebrate Mana Pasifika, who you are. You know, celebrate it. Nobody can do it like how we do. Those issues that are going up north there, you know, in Ukraine and Bosnia and all of that before then, I reckon they should have sent up some Rarotongan drum dancers, you know, change the vibe. Screaming shells and, no, people. You know, we have to spread out like that and tell them, cut it out.
That's super awesome. And what was like, you know, I have a distant relative who was part of the Panthers. His name was Fred Schmidt. And I had a conversation with one of my uncles who said that when Fred was running around with all the young Polynesian Panthers, their auntie would be like, stop being, you know, cheeky. You guys are being naughty, like fiapoko, all those words were shared to them. So what was it like, your relationship with the elders at that time for you personally?
I think they didn't want us to stand up and draw attention like how we were doing. Protesting out on Karangahape Road and Ponsonby Road with placards and megaphones and causing attention, going, troublemakers. You know, like, shh. But what we found, and today, which is what we tell the young ones, you don't need permission. You don't need permission. If you see something wrong, get up, stand up and say something, you know. So with my mum, it ended up when I went to prison, you know, she was brokenhearted, you know, as any parent would be. And she disagreed with what we were doing, protesting against apartheid and that. So she just didn't want to see her son locked up, as any parent would do, you know. But years later, 1995, when Nelson Mandela came here and thanked those of us who were imprisoned for protesting against apartheid, South African Springbok tour, she realised then, oh, not a bad fellow at all, my son. You know,
all they see is you
Yeah.
and prison.
oh yeah. I understand that totally. I don't
Yeah.
want my children to be locked up for nothing.
Yeah.
But as I say, young ones, you don't need permission. Where you see things unjust and not right, highlight it, point it out. You're not on your own. If you see bullying, stand up. Don't let it, don't even go that way. And because somebody's done it to you doesn't mean that you do it to somebody else. It takes practice. And the system that we're living under is like that. I've seen it in prison. Me in this cell gets picked on by that one in that cell because he got picked on by that one, and then he got picked on, and so it just goes, and it never stops.
I just want to highlight the fact that you and the Polynesian Panthers were in your teens when you were fighting for a higher purpose, and that really kind of brings to reality the issues you were facing at the time. That at such a tender age to have to go out onto the streets and fight, and for that I do want to thank you for what you've done and for what the Polynesian Panthers have done for us to be able to thrive as we are now. And I just had one more question for you. The apology happened last year.
Yes.
Do you think there has been a lot done afterwards, after the fact, in order to address kind of the issues that were brought up?
Yes. We're the first country in the world whose Prime Minister apologises for the Dawn raids, apologises for systemic racism. First country in the world to do that. So we set an example, but we don't stop there. We didn't want reparation. We didn't want money. How much money they're going to pay for all the people in the Mai and Hurdle to break them? So unachievable. Neither for amnesty. They tried that before in the 70s, before the Dawn raids. They wanted out. They said, sign here and you'll receive amnesty. Well, our peeps did sign up. Then when the government changed, they used those names on that amnesty to Dawn raid them, get their addresses, where they live. So the trust. So what we're doing, saying we don't want amnesty. You have to give amnesty totally then and equitably. And I don't think any government is capable of doing that unless there's a revolution. So we said we want education. We want scholarships so that our young ones will learn the true history of this going forward. And at the apology, this year, they came out with scholarships. So I think about 15 of our young Pacific and Māori got scholarships, which is what we wanted 100 scholarships. And we asked and demanded for 100 scholarships, knowing that we'll only get about 10 or 20. But we're not stopping there. We still want to demand for more. Because, and as we know, next year it'll be mandatory.
Which is awesome.
Just give us the money. We can control our own destiny. And we have to educate our young ones to understand that and go with it. Because it's their right. It's our right. And I live through the young ones. You give me the energy to carry on.
Yes.
And then the ones after you, the one that's coming up, that are at the schools, and they'll benefit from all that we've done.
Shucks.
You guys have any more questions?
I'm just blown away with the fact that you demanded for education so that you've planted that seed, you fought for us, you planted that seed, and you continue to fight for us. So thank you so much for that.
Good. We just tried to figure it out, what would be more achievable. That would break the country if we demanded for reparation money. What? How much? No way. Unachievable. Or for amnesty. That, I think, when more of our people get into power, perhaps then, by then things should have changed. So education.
On behalf of the Pacific Morning Show and Bluwave, I do appreciate you coming in and talking with us today. there's a whole lot more that we'd love to discuss, but
Yes.
due to time, we have to end things there. But thank you so much for coming onto our show. If you had any last words to share.
I'd like to thank you all, for giving me and mine this opportunity. We knew and understood back then that we needed our own to tell our stories. So you are fulfilling that wish. So thank yous in turn. And for the young ones, you don't need permission. You don't need, in fact, you have our blessing. Go out there and change it. Change the world for the better. Yeah.